Hello, lovers, and welcome to this week's video all around sacred touch. Now, the reason I've called it sacred touch is to really bring our attention to the fact that as human beings, we need touch. And often the word sacred brings up connotations of that it's soft and it's tantric and then it's elongated and it's in a really deep, time-consuming, let's be honest, time-consuming container. Now, the reason I say time-consuming, I'm so into containers, but what I'm speaking to is the perception that many people sort of gather in their system, in their mind, in their brain, when it comes to Tantra, when it comes to sacredness, when it comes to creating containers. And this always makes me giggle because the amount of time on your weekly report on your phone, the amount of time that you scroll is often very immense. My hand up to that as well. It can be very immense. And somehow it's okay to spend 5 to 6 hours looking at other people's lives as opposed to dedicating 1.5 hours twice a week to your beloved, to yourself. This is also if you're solo or if you're partnered. Now, today's conversation and video and then also PDFs and other links included is around how we touch another, how we touch ourselves, how we give touch, how we receive touch, how we ask for the touch that we want, and how we listen so that we can give the touch that the other wants. And this is very deeply steeped in the work of Betty Martin. I first met Betty when I went to, sorry, I'm looking at that way, but I have a whole incredible office here that's like a greenhouse with the ocean just there. I really picked up on this habit last night with the client. I'm like, and I went, I'm not looking at anyone, I'm looking at the ocean. I first met Betty Martin when the very first time I went to Canada, I went to Vancouver, and I was working at quite a few festivals that season in the Red Tent. And so there was a incredible festival up in outside of Squamish that doesn't exist at the moment, unfortunately, but it was in its 3rd year running. And my dear friend Jade Mason, who was living with me in Costa Rica, and we held all of these workshops in Costa Rica, in the whole valley that I lived. So we took all of that to Vancouver, these workshops, and I had the absolute blessing to meet Betty Martin in that festival, be a part of her workshops. Then I had studied with her and her work throughout the iteration of different studies that I've done over the last few years. And also a few years ago when I presented at a tantric festival here in Mexico, on the other coast, on the East Coast, a really dear friend of mine was presenting her work. And what is so profound about this work is how it debunks the constructs that we're often inside of without realizing that actually is, it's kind of the blockage to getting what we want and giving what we want to another and also receiving from another. So sacred touch, what I love around, touch is how it changes and how it shifts and how it is different between the erotic blueprints. So what is very sacred and what is needed and what is loved and what is received and experienced really well for an energetic is going to be different for a sexual or essential for someone in the kink blueprint. So it's always an exploration. It can never be something assumed. And if we're going to speak further into the sacredness in a relationship, when you're relating with someone for many years, you've been in like a beautiful marriage, a relationship, we're always shifting and changing. And what I find consistently when I work with couples and then within my own loverships, what I bring to the table, these are conversations that my lovers have never had before. And sometimes I'm just like, how have you gotten recently 7 decades of your life and never had this type of conversation? Like, I find this really profound, but I also really understand it. So we often do not speak about what we want, how we want it, when we want it, the duration that we want it, and in what context that it works, and how that context changes either over time or even like over time within a day, in public, in private, all of these things. So many assumptions are made. And if something has been received well, like say we give our lover a touch, or we do something like a squeeze or a hand on the back of their back, or maybe there's something that, a way that we massage them or touch them in one moment and they love it. And then we just continue to do that because we know we can win. And I know this is very, very pertinent to men. It's like, oh, I can win that way. That created a positive outcome then. And then the continuation. And then, of course, it is the responsibility of each person, if that changes, that we need to communicate that. So I want to drop into this container of what Betty Martin speaks about, which is the wheel of consent. Now, the wheel of consent has 4 quadrants. And just to basically give a really, easy overview, is that we have the touch that we give someone so that we're pleased because it turns us on, or the touch that we give someone so it pleases them because it's what they want. So on the other side, in the receivership, it's like receiving touch because it's what we've asked for and it turns us on and it works for us. Or we're receiving touch because we are quite happy to be of service and we want to receive that touch, but it makes the other person happy, as opposed to, we're there of service because it's turning them on and we can play that, be in that play. One is not better than the other. One is not more valid than the other. But when we're in an understanding of what is happening, our nervous systems can relax. We can become more empowered in asking. We can become more empowered in having boundaries. We can have more empowered in shifting what needs to happen. And there's a really beautiful practice that I love doing when I have groups, and this is, especially in festivals, but when I have groups and retreats, and if I'm holding, workshops here where I live or anywhere that I travel, especially just recently in Romania, I held this workshop for the women, is when we are asking for what we want, we're asking for exactly what we want. And if we're not receiving that, we then give feedback and we get it to shift. Now, many people find it very difficult to receive fully and to make sure that they're receiving exactly what they want. And that is a huge part of the work within the wheel of consent. So many people are very comfortable to be of service, to allow their partners to be in situations where their partners are touching them because it turns them on and they're taking part. That, in our cultural narrative, is very easy to receive. What is not very common, and what a lot of people, especially women, but I've been in groups of men, is like with men and women in groups of men that also too don't really speak out to what they truly want. In concern, many people are concerned about annoying the other